Bienvenido a su programa Política entre Amigos. Estamos en el tiempo que nos gusta más a los que sintonizan. Son las personas que saben que estar activo en la política es muy importante, porque ese voto es la fuerza y la voz de nuestra comunidad, y todas las cosas que pasan en todos los niveles, en todas las áreas, se hacen en mesas donde las personas electas toman esa decisión, y eso lo podemos ver en todas las áreas. No vamos a entrar en los detalles porque es muy importante que sea un activo participante en la democracia. Vote, vote, siempre vote. Y estamos conociendo a los candidatos, como siempre. Nosotros queremos que usted conozca a los candidatos, escuche lo que ellos piensan, lo que van a decir y sigan sus acciones. En este segmento estamos presentándole una de las candidatas para City Council at Large, sino por toda la ciudad. Y como le dijimos, hay una preliminaria porque hay más candidatos de los 8. Después de la preliminaria van a quedar los 8 finalistas y después en las finales donde se eligen los 4 que queden en las posiciones 1 hasta 4 van a ser los que van a ser sus City Councilors at Large. Igual tenemos una elección para alcaldes que también está muy activa. Siguiendo esa serie, hoy tenemos una amiga, ha venido al programa muchas veces y es concejal por todo Boston, se llama Erin Murphy, muy conocida. Bienvenida, Erin. Welcome.
Thank you.
We are having a preliminary,
Yep.
and then, so explaining the process a little bit, and it's exciting because for the first time we have a full race for the at-large and also for mayor, because we have the, more candidates than the final.
Not all the districts have a primary, but
not all the districts, but
at large, the last 2 years ago, there was no primary for the at large, so we went right to the final.
Correct. Many times we have less in the council than the 8, and then it goes right into the final. But this is, and we'll have at least one new candidate, and we've been actually interviewing the various candidates for the district, which is right here. Right here. Okay, so Councilor, tell us about yourself. Why did you decide to run originally, and a little background and history of Erin Murphy?
First, thank you, Juan. My first couple years on the council, it was a joy to work alongside you. You were a wonderful mentor. I was a public school teacher in Boston for 24 years, a mom raising my kids here in the city, and saw that, the city is so rich and has so much to offer, but not every family, not every resident feels that they're connected in the way that I think everyone should be to really have an opportunity to live a full life. And I would see that in the classroom, advocating for my families. As a special ed teacher, always teaching our youngest students, so many times families come in, kindergarten, first grade, it's their first encounter with school and teachers and mentors, so saw that I could uplift more families and be a voice for residents across the city. So I ran back in 2019. It was the Julia Mejia, won by 1 vote, and jumped right back in the race. And in 2021, I won, and was, like you just described, the top 4 vote getters. So I was one of the top 4 vote getters, and I've been on the council since December of 2021, and I'm running for my 3rd term, my 3rd full term on the council for re-election. I'm excited there's a primary. There's 10 of us, 10 candidates running for the top 4 spots, and 8 of us will make it through next Tuesday, and then we'll have 9 weeks, I think it is, until the final election. And looking forward to getting back to another full term on the council.
Okay, great. And we do have early voting. We've been explaining the process. Make sure that you vote. That's the most important thing. And I always mention the 1 vote victory. Many a times there have been very close races have been decided on 1 vote.
When I won the first time, it was a couple hundred. People say that's a landslide, that 1 or 2 is a lot, but it's definitely every vote matters.
That one vote emphasized everything, because I told, and we watched that closely because it was Alexandra and Julia. I was there, we were observing, and it was like 3 votes going up this way and then down back to at the end, 1 vote. So in any case, you decided to run for re-election. So what are some of the 3 top issues that you have worked or will work in this new term?
Always, as a former teacher, a mom, soon to be a grandmother, definitely always want to make sure that every student across the city, no matter what neighborhood they live in, no matter what street they live in, whatever zip code, that they have access to quality education. So I'll continue to be a strong advocate, making sure that every school has the resources. Our teachers are amazing. My daughter is a teacher in Boston Public Schools, which is wonderful. Her first day back was yesterday. I know our students are returning tomorrow, so looking forward to another successful school year for our students, but we do have lots of work to do in our public schools. So I do think my voice matters on the council, uplifting and advocating, making sure that families are getting what they deserve. I get lots of calls from families concerned that their students aren't getting their special ed services, or not being assigned to the school near their house, or the school buses aren't picking them up on time. So quality of life issues, right? Parents should be able to know that no matter what school their child's assigned to, that they can trust that they're safe, they're happy, and they're thriving. And that's something that unfortunately not every student gets. So something I'll continue to be a strong voice on. Always housing, that's the affordability. The city of Boston is expensive to live in. Rent is expensive. Buying a home is nearly impossible for so many people I talk to. So that's something that I've been a strong supporter and advocate, always using, if it was ARPA funds a few years ago, or different tools to make sure that home ownership, or being able to stay here in the city, is something that all of our residents can do. Strong as a mom of a veteran now, and my parents getting older. I always said I was fortunate growing up with my grandparents, lived into their early hundreds, so had definitely a strong advocate for our seniors, our residents that just maybe need a little bit more support, and always our veterans too. I think those populations that sometimes feel like they're not connected or being served the way we should, make sure we don't forget about them. So, and one of the things I believe my office spends a lot of time on is just quality of life issues. Calls, emails. When I'm out in the neighborhoods, I think it's important that I show up, right? That we're not just in City Hall picking up the phone, we're doing that, but I'm also meeting people where they are, right? If it's, like Julia always says, if it's at the barber shop, but it's, the coffee shop, you're out there in the community. And when you meet people and they trust you, when you make that connection, they do feel comfortable. And that's something I've learned, that I'll continue to make sure people know that I'm someone they can trust and they can come to. And if I take it on, I'm gonna fight for you. I'm gonna make sure that no matter what obstacle maybe the administration or City Hall puts in our way, I'll continue to fight until we can get what we need. People deserve someone like that in City Hall, and that's someone I've been for the last 4 years, and I'm looking forward to continuing that.
Well, in the education area, we have here, I think it's the best place for higher education, and we've done so much. I mean, you see all and with the schools, and you've been in the vanguard of that in so many ways, and also making sure that there are partnerships with the higher institutions, also vocational training, and various other areas. The environmental issues in school. What are
also
some of the
extracurricular, where I've been a strong advocate in making sure we have before and after school programming,
absolutely.
Arts, music,
so tell us some of those
sports, athletics.
That you have been involved, making sure that, also the transportation and so on, because you've been in the vanguard and you've been in a leadership position there. The Sierra is always very active in that area. So tell us some of the things that you see that you want to continue to press on, and some of the things that you are aspiring to do in
Sure, yeah. And so I know from being a teacher for over 2 decades, but also as a mom, there's certain, things that really motivate and get kids excited. And make it, you know, as a parent yourself and a grandparent, sometimes kids struggle during school day, and if there's something that will get them to school and connect them and they find a relationship, if it's a science class, if it's an after-school program, if it's music, if it's gym. I know my kids played sports. My daughter now is an art teacher in BPS, and making sure that we're offering that across the city, that you don't have to be lucky to be at a school where they're going to offer you, you know, the opportunity, or that the bus is going to pick you up and you're going to have rowing, or you can be on the football team or the baseball team, or there's going to be art class, dance class, music class. So I really do think that that is all connected to the whole, you know, holistic approach, and making sure that we're, you know, we're meeting kids and we're offering them opportunities so that, you know, they feel their mental health and their physical health and their education. It's like, it all matters. We can't just teach kids how to read, even though that is very important. We have to also offer them other ways to really feel connected and feel wanted in school.
And then, you know, we see what a special place Boston is, but it's geographically small, and a lot of people want to live here, and we do have a lot of institutions that requires that we have working class and, like you said, seniors and everybody, and housing definitely is an issue that needs a lot of creative ideas, and there have been some that have been working and creating some, but I think there's clearly, everybody knows that we need to do more to make sure first that we take care of those that have lived here and that are elderly and so on, but also
we don't want to push people
opportunities for home ownership too, and absolutely, so that it will continue to be a place, and there are ways that can happen, and there's some initiatives, but it's always looking for a balance. But we got to make sure that it's affordable to those that make this city the special place it is, and especially the people that work and live, even our city workers. And
my own kids, so, I often say how they could be the fourth generation here in the city that may not be able to afford to stay here. So that often breaks my heart.
I know that you've been involved in various of the formulas and creation. What are some of the things that you think we can focus on and that we can maybe improve on?
Yeah, and I know that this administration has really brought forth some creative ideas when it comes to, you know, grants for down payments on home ownership, expanding the amount of affordable housing. But I do think we have to do a much better job at creating more housing, and not just single unit, not just rentals, not like 1-2 bedrooms. We need family size, working class housing that we just don't have enough of. And we talk a lot about on the council that many of our city workers are not getting paid enough to be able to live here, so they have a residency requirement and they can afford the rent, or the mortgage is really taking up too much of their paycheck to be able to offer, you know, keep food on the table. So there's a lot of struggle that people are in, so we have to find ways to, you know, expand. And I do think we have to build more, and we have to really work with the neighborhoods to accept that, you know, housing, we have to create more housing for it to become more affordable.
Yeah, you mentioned quality of life, and basically constituent service, which is something that you always have prided yourself, making sure that the office is open if somebody comes in, and accessibility and going out. So especially some of the elderly and folks that may not have the equipment, and it's very difficult sometimes to have to, you know, do everything online.
We talk a lot about like language access, but digital access is very important.
Access.
I'm having a hearing soon about digital equity.
To the decision makers, you know, when you go out or people come to you, that is very important. We need to revive that. I know that you.
And when they come, right, that they know that I bring their voice, and then.
What is it that you see that we need to do to make sure that will never be in the way it was? Things that, you know, we have these tools that are available and they can be balanced use of it, but we need to be more a people face-to-face type of thing.
And you know, our good friend, and our good friend Kerry Jordan, as you know, went over to the Do It department. So I do think that that department, working alongside other city departments, it's important that, I often say that some people feel that they're disconnected because maybe they can't drive into City Hall, they can't park their car, or they're expected to get online and fill out a form. So I think it's important that my office, like, you know, even at the City Council office level, that we show up in the neighborhoods. I've talked about, you know, and showed up at the library or senior centers and really talked seniors through, or, you know, parents who come with their kids, or nannies who are coming during the day with young children, connecting them with city services at different city departments across the city is something we have to do a better job at. Like, we know families are going to show up at community centers, at libraries, so bring City Hall, that idea of like City Hall on the go. You know, weren't you the JP liaison back during like Flynn or White? The Hispanic, okay, so citywide, where it's like, let's bring City Hall out to the neighborhood. Now with the internet, like, City Hall is everywhere, but not everyone has access. And I think it's important that we also make sure that our BHA residents are not being left out of that, because oftentimes we see that the quality of you know, life in our BHA housing is not what it should be.
I saw on constituent services the various forms, and I actually started in the little city halls with Kevin White, which they had little city halls in all the neighborhoods or sectors. Like we had the Mission Hill, JP, and people could go there. They didn't have to drive, and they could pay tickets, do that, and so on. So there was some, but then neighborhood services. So we adapted different things, and you know, this is something that I try not to bring out my own, but it's clear I share this with everybody. We need people contact, in my opinion. You know, for we see all of the, and definitely we used to use the new technology. I'm thinking how they use the AI and so on in the typewriter, but it needs to be a balance, and we need humanity. You can't get all of those stores that are closed down and the coffee shops that are not open, if you don't have people there having birthdays and hiring the caterers and so on. So there has to be a balance, and definitely we got to use the WebEx and the Zooms and all of that, because that's what it is.
Even like the self-checkout.
Further into that, but also we got to go further into the humanity, and like you said, especially seniors and so on. And if somebody takes time to go to City Hall and to go to these places, I believe there should be people that they can speak to.
A person, every day.
Somebody. And
I've gone,
you know, go online. I mean,
I've gone into city departments on like a Tuesday or a Wednesday, and there's no one in there. Well, we have a lot of people still working remote.
There's a lot of good work being done, and there's some people, you know, and
wonderful work.
I always let folks know, and in education the same way. I know that I take courses that from, you know, other universities and different things, and watch documentaries, but I want to, when you learn and you have other people around you, it's a different experience.
Yeah, it's huge.
And in everything.
That human interaction.
And that we need a lot more of that. But so it's got to be a balance. And so the other thing is, do you value diversity in your organization, in your office, and so on?
Absolutely. It's important that, especially as an at-large city councilor, and there's people who work in City Hall, but my organization, and you know, you're very fortunate, I think, if you're successful every time you run for office, your networking grows, right? Your organization grows. So my connections and my campaign support across the city just really reflects that. I've shown up in every neighborhood. I don't pick and choose where to go, right? I believe that as an at-large councilor, you're representing every neighborhood, all of the people across the city, so you have to make sure that you find relationships and connections across the city. I do appreciate, I think it's funny though, when district councilors will, you've seen it, they'll be like, you know, I represent the most people in senior housing, or I represent the most in public housing, or I have the most Latinos in my district, and I always say, well, I have all of it, right? As an at-large city councilor, it's a curse in some ways, because there's so much, and I'm someone who wants to make sure that I don't miss any call or email, or making sure I show up everywhere, but at the same time, it's wonderful to be able to lift up the voices of all of our neighborhoods, all of our different cultures. I always say that that's what makes our city so rich, right? But you have to show it where, who do you hire, who do you talk to, who do you respect, who do you invite to your events, like who are you asking to promote you? And it can't always look like the same people. It has to show that, you know, you don't just say things that you know, that you're actually, like my slogan's always been action, not just words. Because people can say a lot, but what are you doing? And I always say, judge me by my actions and judge me from how I show up.
That's what celebrates. It's a great city. You know, I love every inch. And you know, a district councilor, a large councilor,
very different.
The main thing you do, which is even now more important since there's more power in the council side than there was in previous years, because now you can do a lot more with the budget, and that's where these decisions are made, where to invest the dollars and what to do. And we have the issues of environmental issues. We have the parks and the quality
open
of life,
spaces,
like you said, open spaces, making
in
sure
every neighborhood,
that every neighborhood is represented and takes advantage of all of these things. So make sure that
Want me to tell people? No, that's okay.
Why should the voters of the city of Boston re-elect you to be one of the city
So first off, I think the number's up to 60% now where people mail in their ballots. Election day was that, you know, get out the vote weekend, and you had one day to get people out to vote, and it's great that people are, you know, requesting and mailing in ballots. So I know more than half of the residents of the city of Boston have already voted, and so I've been connecting, you know, ever since last election. I don't just wait till election time, but I'll continue to show up. I'll continue to be a voice of reason. I'll continue to, you know, take my job seriously and make sure I uplift the voices of everyone across the city. So I am respectfully asking you to consider me for one of your 4 votes. I'm number 5 on the ballot. So if you haven't done early voting or mailed in a ballot, next Tuesday is the primary. We do have a primary, and then we'll have a full election in November. I'm not sure if I'll be back before the final to talk to you, but I want to remind everyone that, you know, please vote for me in the primary, and I'll get through to the final. And you know, I'd be honored to continue to represent the city of Boston, and I'll show up with, you know, the integrity and honesty that I've been doing for the last 4 years.
Well, we really appreciate you coming out, and we are planning to do a 2-hour special with the finalists, also with the mayoral. Of course, all the you know, bread and butter issues that any ethnicity is interested in, you know. A great
I say we're so alike in so many ways, but then there are things that, you know, just different neighborhoods care about more, and that's
right.
something
There's
you have to be.
Things that are particular, and we'll touch on that, but basically everybody wants, you know,
a better life. They want the city to work for them.
So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Very
I
good
always
luck,
appreciate
and we're looking forward to continue to work with you and having you over this.
I'll be back.
Vamos a regresar con su programa Política Entre Amigos. Ok, estamos de regreso y estamos aquí conociendo los candidatos y en este caso tenemos el concejal que representa el distrito 6, que es un área donde hay una gran cantidad de latinos y muchas de las primeras comunidades, etcétera, fueron en esa zona, y él dice que Ben Weber es latino, habla español. So Councilor, thank you for coming. And first of all, we do this to make sure that the Latino community is informed. So we invite all the candidates and so on, because we believe that voting is the way that you show love for the city, and democracy and active participation is what you need to do. So tell us, first of all, your background, your history. I know you've been very active, and why did you decide to run for office?
Okay, well, thank you very much. Soy Benjamín Weber, el concejal de Distrito 6. Soy un abogado y aprendí un poco español porque representé trabajadores agrícolas en el sur de los Estados Unidos con reclamos de sueldo. Pero permiso, voy a platicar en inglés. So my name is Ben Weber, and I'm the city councilor for District 6. I'm in my first term as a district councilor. Before that, I worked as an attorney for about 20 years, representing workers with all kinds of claims, discrimination claims, claims for unpaid wages, claims for retaliation. And I ran for city council because I've lived in Jamaica Plain now for about 18 years with my wife and 2 kids. I've raised 2 kids, both are BPS students, and I wanted to try to use the skills I had gained working as an attorney to sort of try to work in my neighborhood and see what I could learn about, you know, the issues in our schools, the issues with our housing, and other issues in the neighborhood, and that's what I've tried to do on the council in my first term.
So now, first of all, Spanish is really good, you know, and I appreciate, you know. The 3 issues that you think are the key issues that you would be addressing, that you have been addressing, or in your new term, but citywide or in particular, but the 3 things that you consider top issues for you at this point.
I think 2 of the issues are things that I wanted to work on, and I thought I would be spending a lot of time working on as a councilor. And then I'll get to the 3rd issue last. But those 2 issues are education. You know, with 2 kids in BPS, both of my kids went to a school that was shut down, the Mission Hill School in Jamaica Plain. And just going through the challenges of BPS and seeing how many families struggle to get their kids the education that they deserve. I had a son who had an issue with, he needed an IEP. And we had trouble getting that IEP for him, and going through that and seeing how many families around me, especially in Jamaica Plain and West Roxbury, sort of had issues with BPS, and I wanted to try to work to make sure that our city could give a world-class education to every kid in the city. So that's one issue. The second issue is housing. I think we have a housing crisis here in Boston. We need to make sure that not only do we build more housing, but that we have housing that is affordable for everyone who wants to live here in Boston. It's too expensive, and I wanted to work on that issue on the council. The third issue, I think, is the 3rd most important issue, or one of the top 3 issues going forward, and that is, you know, it's immigration and human rights. I really think that we need to do everything we can in this city to make sure that all of our residents, have a place to live, and that we're protecting their rights, no matter, you know, where they came from, what language they speak, what color their skin is. And certainly, I think the Trump administration is threatening to come in here because we have policies in place like the Boston Trust Act to protect our citizens. I'm really encouraged by the strength of our mayor, Michelle Wu, who has been sticking up for all of us against the Trump administration. And I think that going into next year and the next couple of years, while Trump is still in office, we're going to have to keep fighting to make sure every resident in Boston can feel safe and included in our city.
Councilor Weber, education clearly is the key to all doors, and just it's such a necessity for everyone, and it's such a broad issue. We have the institutions of higher learning, vocational education, even opening for English as a second language, and infrastructure, transportation, etc. What are some of the concerns that you have? What has been working, and where would you expand or put more resources or attention in that broad spectrum?
Yeah, I think with our schools, one of the issues that my office has been focusing on is the superintendent, Mary Skipper, has talked about an inclusion model, which is going to be able to make sure that kids with special needs are able to learn in an inclusive environment and have access to great resources, which is fantastic. But what I saw at the Mission Hill School was an inclusion model where the supports weren't in place for everyone, and that it made it hard for kids who didn't need special services to get education. Also made it hard for kids who were learning English to learn in the same environment. So we've been working with organizations around the city, like Beja, who are trying to make sure that the inclusion model does not work to the detriment of kids who are come from non-English speaking families who are still learning English. One of the things we can do is to make sure the resources are in place, the teachers with the ability to teach kids who are English language learners, and to have reading specialists in every single school, so the kids, because if they can't read, they're not going to be able to access our schools. So one of the things we've been pushing on is to make sure that there's a reading specialist in every school. Every kid has access to that. And in the last couple of years, the superintendent has increased the number of reading specialists. We're going to continue working on that.
One key issue in education that here we always say we have the greatest institutions of higher learning. How do we make sure that our kids are able to access those education or improve their percentages and so on? And also technology, making sure they're prepared and trained for the jobs that are being created by what we are in the vanguard here, nanotechnology and so on. So you have any ideas about that, how we've got to make sure that our kids also have the opportunity to take advantage of the great place they live in?
Yeah, and I think that investment in BPS is what we need. I know our school budget right now going into this fiscal year was $1.6 billion, but we have 45 to 50,000 students. We need to make sure they have access to world-class facilities and world-class instruction, and part of that is sort of vocational instruction. Madison Park, getting that up and working at its full capacity. I visited there. One of the things I worked with Principal Caitlin Murphy at the English High School, which is in my district, and she has programs for certified nursing assistants and culinary programs. And one of the things I did was there's a development going in at the Hadoff's gas station on Washington Street. I made sure that the developer is in his community benefits package is actually going to pay about $40,000 to English High School, which are going to support those professional learning programs, so kids who go to English High and graduate from there can afford to live in those apartments that they're building at Hadoff's and stay in the neighborhood.
So yeah, that goes into the other issue that everybody understands is a key issue here, because geographically our city and it's so attractive, but there are ways to create housing that make sure that those people that are doing the work, as you said, and make the city such a attractive place, that are able to afford to rent or buy or just be able to stay in the neighborhood. So what are some of the initiatives and programs that you see are working that you would continue, and what are some innovative things that we could do around that?
Yeah, housing is probably the number one crisis we have here in Boston. Yeah, as a counselor, I've tried to look for ways that we could make a difference. And I know we talk a lot about housing development and zoning reform and the IDP and all those. I support the mayor's increased affordability requirements. I support rent control here, which we're fighting for the permission from the state legislature to have here in Boston, and all those things are great. One thing that I did work on the council, which I'm proud of in my first term, was we heard how 5,000 kids in BPS experienced homelessness in the last year. That obviously has a huge impact on the kids. They have trouble learning. It has an impact on the whole system. One of the solutions is to provide attorneys for people in eviction proceedings. And so we started a pilot program here last year. We expanded it this year. That is going to provide, if you have a kid in school here in Boston and you get an eviction notice, we're going to provide you with an attorney in housing court. And if you go to housing court, you can see how unbalanced it is. Over 90% of landlords have attorneys, less than 5% of tenants have attorneys. And by providing them with an attorney in housing court, it gives people more time to find replacement housing. It saves the family and the kids from going through the trauma of an eviction, and it also saves money. When a kid is homeless and they get placed in a shelter, they stay in their same school, and we pay for busing back to their home school. 5,000 kids experience homelessness. We spend about $17 million busing those kids back to their home schools. By providing an attorney in housing court, it actually, for every dollar you spend on those attorneys, it can save anywhere between $5 and $10 in public resources that we won't be spending on busing, we won't be spending on shelters, won't be spending on other resources like social workers and mental health counselors for these families. So that's one way to just be providing our families with an anchor, allowing them to stay in the neighborhoods where they've been for years and raising their kids, and protecting our kids from having to go through that. So that's the Access to Counsel pilot program is something I'm really proud of.
The other issue you identify, which is self-evident, if you go across the city and you see the North End and the contributions of the immigration, the Italians, the Irish, what this city is all about, and also the making sure that people feel safe. And it's a pretty safe city compared to, we've done well in many ways, and it's because of a lot of this good communication between institutions and so on. And you mentioned the climate that we have. And we saw during the COVID and so on, these essential workers that they contribute to our city, as immigrants have. And I know you've done a lot of work on that for decades. What are some of the things we can make sure that we continue to do here in spite of the general climate, and that you think we should use and so that we can show the actual contributions? I know you have a lot of information about all these things, and I know that it's easy to see. But how do you project that, and how you make sure that these people feel safe? Because they're not feeling it. They hear all these things, and you know that there's a lot of people living in fear right now. So what are some of the things we can do?
Yeah, I spoke last week at the Julia Martin House in Jackson Square, and you could just see seniors who are they don't know what's going to happen to them, to their families. I've heard stories about people last school year who were telling their kids to rush home right after school because they were worried what was going to happen. And we're seeing what's happening, what happened in Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., now maybe Chicago, maybe New Orleans, where they send the National Guard in. So I've been focusing on the Boston Trust Act, which does not allow the Boston Police Department to cooperate in immigration actions. We need to make sure that's enforced. I was encouraged, I think today or yesterday, Mayor Michelle Wu said that if any Boston police officer that violates that act and shares information with ICE would be disciplined. I think it's really important. We need to stand our ground and stand up for our our residents. Something that I've been working on is, I represent Jackson Square, Eggleston Square. I like to think of it, as the sort of the Dominican heart of Boston, and one thing I did when I got into office was I helped push for funds for Mozart Park. Hyde Square Task Force has a group of kids that are going to renovate Mozart Park in Jackson Square to reflect the Dominican culture and the people that live around it. I've also been working in Eggleston Square with Main Streets there to make sure we're maintaining the Dominican character of Eggleston Square, and that's keeping these businesses up and running. We have La Parada, we've got barbershops, we've got a lot of different things in Eggleston Square. And so in response to the threats we're seeing from the federal government, we've had Know Your Rights trainings, and the training that I thought was helpful was meeting with small business owners in Eggleston Square, making sure they understood the difference between a warrant issued by a court and a warrant that's an administrative warrant from ICE, which is not enforceable, and understanding what businesses can do to protect their workers by having space in the workplace that's private, by making sure there's an attorney that you've already spoken to, so that if ICE shows up at the door, there's a number, somebody knows who to call and what to do in that situation. So we'll continue working with those businesses to make sure they understand what their rights are as businesses and what the rights of their workers are, so we can make a difference for whatever happens here in Boston.
The other thing is making sure that we have the authentic information out there about the true worth and contributions of the immigrants community. When we see that, I mean, this city reflects that more than any. As you can see, the contributions of the Irish, the Polish, the Italians, Dominicans, Cubans, Central Americans, and so on. And everybody can see all the businesses that have come forward and the progress that has been made. If you know this city, if you've known it, you have seen all the great things that are happening around all our squares and circles and so on. And the fact is that these communities, they're not supporting criminals, they're not criminals. The numbers are quite the contrary, and I think that's one of the things that we need to make sure we get out there. These communities, they come here for the American dream, just like all the others before and now. And many have been here for many, many generations. So it's very important to know that nobody is protecting or want to, the criminals should be. Those communities are the ones that are most harmed when that element is there. But to scapegoat and use them when you can clearly see, if you go to any place where they take care of the elderly or people doing agriculture or fixing the roofs, you see who's doing a lot of this good work, okay? And what they want is education, quality of life, and a peaceful place. And you see internationally and nationally all the things that are happening. Just let's make sure that we tell the facts, how they contribute and have contributed and continue. How do we make sure that people get that correct narrative and not all of these made up stories that scapegoat people like that?
Yeah, well, it's hard. I think we're living in a sort of post-truth world, where we'll see, the Trump administration just make up stories. We have the safest city in the country. It's the safest Boston has ever been, and part of that is because we have immigrants, people who come to the city who work hard and raise their children, and we hear from the Trump administration that, well, we're unsafe because people came here from other countries, or just because somebody came here from Honduras or Guatemala and is in the TPS program and they've taken that away from them, somehow they're a threat to our society. We have to keep standing up, and I think, honestly, these are bullies. They are trying to bully us. When we come out and we stand together, we can show them what the truth is. Every time we had a great Labor Day parade on Monday, we had a great protest of the Trump administration for the hands-off Boston and no kings, and I think just keep standing up, showing that we are united and we're going to stand together, and this is a safe place. Not only is it a safe place, it's a great place that we can all live together in. It's the only thing we can do, and I really hope we continue doing it no matter what happens and the message that we get or whatever is sent our way from DC.
So the good thing you mentioned TPS and DACA now that's being discussed. Those programs, people that are in those programs, the truth is that if anybody's been vetted about is people on TPS, they've had to for years. They have to every couple of years, or no more than 18 months sometimes. Yeah. They have to show that they're working, they're not getting any benefits, and they are contributing and have no criminal record. So let me tell you, somebody has been vetted, and the proof is in the pudding. Look around every neighborhood here, East Boston, in any city actually, but here we can see it everywhere. Working and what they contribute every day.
Yeah, not only that, I would say people under TPS are here legally. They have a legal status. Correct. And for basically the Trump administration to say they're illegal aliens because the Trump administration has decided illegally to strip them of their status, then it's this absurd story that we can't allow to be given without us fighting back against.
And the other thing is working on a real comprehensive plan. Everybody knows that the immigration, the way right now, the people that have been vetted and have been contributing and paying taxes and doing the right thing, you need to have a path so they can do their residency and so on. And we've seen in the past efforts being made to do that, and it was some people benefit from continuing that that spin.
Yeah.
Well,
the other thing I would say to that is we also hear the narrative of people saying, well, they're just going to go after the bad people, they're not going to go after everyone. Well, we've seen how they want to go back to some form of America where there were no immigrants, and by bullying people, that gives them more power. They come for one of us, they come for all of us, and I really think that's how we have to respond.
And God bless America, and let me tell you and anybody, there's never been a time when there was no immigrants. Quite the contrary. I mean, there was a time where before Columbus and before authentic history, and let me tell you, a pluribus unum, that's what makes the place great, and it's liberty and justice for all, and truth. And the truth is that these people are working people. They are working and to make sure that after Katrina, the building and all of that, so we got to open our eyes and look at it. I mean, we live in this city, and we see how wonderful and all the progress that we've made. I feel fantastic going to any neighborhood. I love the North End and Roxbury, and somebody coming and saying, oh, it's amazing. So let's make sure that we stand up, and this is standing up for what our country is all about. The immigrants gateway right at City Hall and so on. And let me tell you, if we didn't have the United States of America, pluribus unum, we'd have to invent it in this world of so much division and pointing fingers. So all these folks, and thank you. I know, I want to tell you, I admire the work that you're doing, and you look fantastic on your sombrero. and tell us, do you value diversity and inclusion in your team and in your organization?
Yes, my office couldn't function without, my staff, and, that includes, I don't know, un niño de Bani, Melissa Beltran, my director of constituent services, who grew up in Eggleston Square. I have my policy director, Jordan Frias, is Dominican also. In addition, I have 2 senior citizens on my staff, so we have age diversity because we need to make sure that we're responding to the concerns of all our constituents. So my office, we pride ourselves on diversity, and I don't think I could do my job without my staff.
And that is good in your organization, and also advocating so that continues. We say, make sure that women are involved, and residents and veterans and seniors and so on. And that is, I admire a lot of the work you do. We invite all the candidates and allow them to speak. We have, well, thank you for coming. And why should the citizens and registered voters there re-elect you as their district councilor?
Yeah.
And they can vote, they've already been voting, some of them. But why should they send Councilor Weber back?
Just to clarify, I'm not on the ballot until November. You won't see me on the ballot in the preliminary, but you will for District 6 in November. So I have worked as a journalist, I've worked as an attorney. I really love working as a city councilor. In my first term, I got to, I danced my first bachata, I ate my first mofongo, and it's really a pleasure to be able to try to figure out how I can apply the skills that I gained as an attorney for 20 years to represent the people who live in my district. I think with the Access to Council program and other things that I've worked on, I've shown that I can make a difference and I can work to help people in my district and across the city of Boston. So I hope you'll continue to want to have me in office, so I just want to, I'll ask for your vote. Is it le pido bota permiso, voy a aprender más español en la próxima term. So thank you.
You're there in the vanguard and showing up, and we have, at least we'll have one new councilor, because we have in this district here, we have numerous candidates and so on. But it's always important, y hemos hablado de que en algunos lugares, si hay 2 candidatos o un candidato, pues no va a haber elección. Y el concejal Weber es muy popular en su distrito por su acción y su trabajo, pero siempre es importante, él le pide su voto y darle un voto de confianza. Porque cuando usted vote, siempre cuando vea el nombre, si cree que está haciendo un buen trabajo, vote y márquelo, porque eso le llena a él de inspiración. So make sure we have some districts that will have a new councilor,
yes.
And many candidates, and we explain that why we have elections for the at-large, because we have more than the 8 and so on. And in many places we only have 2 candidates or people running unopposed. But it's important in that final thing to make sure they get that vote for the person, so they can give you reassurance that this is what they want, that type of representation.
Okay.
So it's vote, siempre vote. Y recuerde, la próxima semana seguimos con esta serie, Conozca a tu candidato. Y que Dios me lo bendiga.